Hello, my name is Dr. Chantella and I'm a licensed acupuncturist here in Charleston, South Carolina. So today I wanted to talk about what is acupuncture actually doing. So if you want to learn more about that, then stick around. Okay, so what is acupuncture actually doing as far as how does it work? And I wanted to kind of dispel some of the mystery behind it because I think a lot of people imagine we're just sticking needles into you and hoping for the best. So, acupuncture comes from a traditional medical system that has its own way of understanding the body. And it uses concepts that some people have heard of, like chi, meridians, which you can see, here. We have some posters of meridians here in my office. And we also talk about the balance between different physiological systems in TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. But what's interesting is that modern research has also been investigating what happens physiologically when we stimulate acupuncture points. There's lots of research out there now for you to see that these are real effects to the body that we're seeing when we're stimulating these points, and we're seeing effects involving things like the nervous system, the connective tissue, blood flow, neurotransmitters, and the body's own pain regulating mechanisms, which means that acupuncture creates real results for real health concerns that people have. And so when I practice acupuncture, I'm working within the traditional framework of Chinese medicine while also being really interested in what modern science is teaching us about how these treatments may work. And that's something I want to talk about a lot more here on the channel. So let's talk about one of the most misunderstood words in Chinese medicine, qi. So when people hear qi, they sometimes think I'm talking about some mystical energy floating around in your body. But qi is a much more nuanced concept within TCM or traditional Chinese medicine. It's used to describe things like functional activity, movement, transformation, and the processes that allow the body to do what it needs to do, basically. So when a TCM practitioner says your spleen chi is deficient, we're not saying your physical spleen is broken. And that's something that I definitely want to talk a lot more about. Maybe not in this video, but when we're talking about different organ systems in TCM, we're not always saying that like if we're saying your spleen is chi is deficient, your liver, it has stagnation, things like that. It doesn't mean your actual liver is is ill. It's a different. It's describing a larger concept or framework, and we're talking about. When we're talking about those organ systems, we're talking about a particular pattern of functional activity according to the Chinese medical framework. And that's why I think it's really important to learn TCM terminology within the system it came from, rather than trying to force every concept into a modern, like Western scientific definition. Okay, so you've probably seen one of these acupuncture charts before. The ones with it has the naked guy on it. And you see all of these lines running up and down his body. You see little dots on the lines. You see the ear and the hand and other, smaller parts that have dots on them. So, what exactly are all these lines, though? So, these these lines are the channels or meridians that are used in Chinese medicine. So, traditionally, they're understood as pathways through which qi and blood circulate throughout the body. And here's where it gets really interesting. So, a meridian isn't simply the same thing as a nerve or a blood vessel or a muscle. It's a concept from a traditional medical system. So, modern researchers have explored possible anatomical and physiological correlates of acupuncture points and channels, but we're still learning exactly how to understand those relationships. So I don't think we need to say meridians are fake or meridians are literal little invisible tubes. They're a lot more nuanced here, and that's what makes this stuff really interesting. And just for your information, it's the meridian systems that are one of the ways that I diagnose and treat different conditions, because each of these meridians, they correlate to different organ systems, and on the meridians are the actual points. So that is how I choose which points I'm going to use based on everyone who comes in to see me, their unique presentations. It's very customizable, and it's never a one size fit all kind of treatment. And I think that is what makes acupuncture extremely effective. So, why does Chinese medicine call some foods warming and other foods cooling? Are we literally talking about temperature here? Well, let's talk about it. So, not necessarily. So, in Chinese medicine, the thermal nature of a food refers to its effect within the body's overall functional pattern, not simply whether you ate it hot or cold. So, for example, ginger is traditionally considered warming, while some foods are considered cooling, like melons, for example. And that doesn't mean ginger literally raises your body temperature every time you eat it. It's a part of a larger food therapy system that considers things like a person's constitution, symptoms, the season that we're in, the preparation method of that food, and just the overall pattern in general. And this is where food therapy gets really interesting to me, because it's much more individualized than simply saying this food is healthy or this food is unhealthy. As a matter of fact, after becoming a acupuncturist and learning more about these type of systems and these type of relationships between like food and temperature and a person's constitution, I learned that some things that we even find healthy, especially by Western standards, like smoothies and salads and things like that, can actually be problematic from a traditional Chinese medicine lens. And so, depending on the person. So I love this because, again, like I mentioned in the channel video, it's never a one size fit all treatment. One person's salad that makes them healthy and vibrant and feel light and like things are moving, circulating well in them, could be another person's cause of stagnation. And it all depends on how the person is showing up. When we're looking at their body constitution. So, another one of the reasons why I love traditional Chinese medicine is because of this ability to customize. It's so important when it comes to effective treatment. So, does acupuncture actually have scientific evidence behind it? So, let's talk about it, because the answer is more interesting than a simple yes or no. So, there are clinical trials and systematic reviews looking at acupuncture for a variety of conditions, and the amount and quality of the evidence varies depending on what we're treating. For example, there are areas where the evidence is relatively strong. For example, pain management, it's absolutely strong. There's tons of research out there of how acupuncture is very, very effective for pain management. In fact, many Western medical institutions are now implementing pain management programs that involve things like acupuncture and Eastern medicine, because of the rise in the use of opioids causing so many deaths and issues for people, as kind of a go-to for a lot of pain management, chronic pain management or severe pain management. So evidence is really strong in areas like pain management. Uh, Whereas it's promising but still developing for other things. And then there are areas where the evidence is very much less convincing. So it all depends, like I said, on what condition is being treated in those studies. And that's actually how I want to talk about research here on the channel. I'm not interested in taking one study and saying science proves acupuncture works, because I mean, those are out there, but I'm not trying to, only look at those studies. And that's not really how science works, So I want to look at the actual studies, understand what they found, and look at their limitations as well, and talk about what we can reasonably conclude from those studies. Because I think so, if you've ever heard a TCM practitioner say, you have kidney deficiency, please don't panic and Google kidney failure, okay? Oh my gosh, how many times have I heard people go home and do that? Um, Kidney in Chinese medicine, just for the record, and kidney in modern biomedicine are not interchangeable concepts. So just take that. Please, I offer that to you. When a TCM practitioner talks about kidney deficiency, we're describing a traditional pattern that can involve things like vitality, reproduction, uh, development, fluid metabolism, aging, and other functions within the TCM framework. Again, within that context of TCM, not, you know, Western biomedicine. And that does not mean that we diagnose you with kidney disease, okay? And this is a really important distinction when you're learning traditional Chinese medicine, when you're going to see your acupuncturist, and you're hearing these things for your own peace. Don't try to interchange terms with biomedicine or Western medicine. You can't just take every Chinese medical term and do that with it, because, again, the context matters. Okay, so I'm going to gush for a minute because here's one of the reasons I love, love, love Chinese medicine. I love, love, love Eastern medicine. And it's because food isn't just food. Within Chinese food therapy, we don't only ask, does this food have vitamins? Does this food have minerals? Does it have micronutrients? Does it have macros? We're also interested in things like flavor, thermal nature, preparation, um, even the season, the seasonality of the food, and how that food fits into an individual's overall pattern. Again, I'm talking about, complementarity. How does something complement a person's presentation? Because again, one healthy food for one person may not be a healthy food for another. So, two foods can both be incredibly nutritious, but they may not have the same effect on every person. For example, once upon a time, I used to believe kale was like the ultimate superfood that everyone should be eating. And, very well, greens are good for a majority of people, I would say. But not in every situation, not in every case, not in every season, right? So you have to look at those things. And that's what Eastern medicine, that's what TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, orients you towards, is to look at these things based on a case by case type of basis. So that's something I really want to explore here on Five Element Kitchen. We're going to talk about recipes. We're going to talk about using food as a therapy, as a therapeutic modality. We're going to talk about TCM, acupuncture, Eastern medicine, research, lifestyle, and how these different pieces can come together and just support you in everyday life, health, and wellness. So, why is this called Five Element Kitchen if I'm sitting here in an acupuncture treatment room? Well, because Five Element Kitchen isn't just going to be about recipes. Food and food therapy are a huge part of what I want to talk about, but I also want to explore traditional Chinese medicine, Eastern medicine, acupuncture, the five elements, modern research, evidence based care, and practical wellness. Sometimes we're going to be in my kitchen cooking. Sometimes we're going to be right here talking about acupuncture and TCM. And sometimes we're just going to sit down, maybe grab some tea. You can have some tea with me and ask, okay, what does the research actually say about this? So if you're interested in food, Chinese medicine, acupuncture, and learning how traditional and modern approaches can inform upon each other, then welcome. This is Five Element Kitchen.